Here are 5 reasons why you should be making your own dog treats. They're way fresher and you'll know exactly what's in them. Besides that, they cost less, there's no fillers or preservatives, and your dogs are gonna love them. Today's video includes a Milk-Bone copycat recipe that my dogs love. The kitchen is now open, so come on in. Let's cook up something good. It's no secret that dogs love peanut butter, but they're also big fans of pumpkin, and our first recipe uses both. Chewy peanut butter pumpkin stars. In a medium-large bowl, I add 1 cup of canned pumpkin, not pumpkin pie mix, 2 eggs, and 1/3 cup of natural peanut butter. And be sure there is no xylitol or other artificial sweeteners in your peanut butter because they can hurt your dog. Then I whisk these all together until they're completely combined. Then I add 2 cups of whole wheat flour and a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon and mix thoroughly. Now this is a firm dough, so I'm going to use the best mixing tools God gave us, my hands. So when you make these, go ahead, get your hands dirty. Now it's time to roll out my dough. I mark a wooden skewer at 1/4 inch and set it aside. Then I dust my work surface with flour and roll out my dough. I use the skewer to check that my dough is 1/4 inch thick, and in this case, it's a little too thick. So I roll it some more, check it again, and it's just right. So I cut out my stars. If the dough starts to stick to the cutter, I dip it in flour and continue cutting. I place the stars on my parchment-lined baking sheet and re-roll my dough scraps, repeating until I've used all the dough. Then it's off to the oven to bake at 350 degrees for about 20 minutes. I move the treats to a cooling rack so they can cool completely before storing them in an airtight container. These will keep in the fridge up to 1 month or freezer up to 6 months. For a healthy snack, humans enjoy apples and cheese. Well, dogs love them too. So next up, apple cheddar biscuit hearts. In a medium-large bowl, I add 1½ cups of whole wheat flour, a 1/2 cup of old-fashioned rolled or quick oats, a 1/2 cup of shredded cheddar cheese, a 1/2 cup of unsweetened applesauce, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and 3 tablespoons of water, and mix them all until well combined. Again, you're gonna have to get your hands in there, so if it's too sticky, dip your hands in a little flour. Continue working the dough until it's completely mixed. This may sound familiar because it's just like my stars with one small difference. On a lightly floured surface, I roll the dough out to 1/4 inch thick and cut out my hearts. I place those on a parchment-lined baking sheet and re-roll the scraps, repeating until I've cut out all the dough, and then bake at 350 degrees, but for 25 minutes this time. I move my treats to a cooling rack and allow them to cool completely before storing them in an airtight container in the fridge for up to 2 weeks or freezer for up to 3 months. Milk-Bone, step aside. Your fur people are gonna love these copycat Milk-Bones, but be sure to follow the directions carefully because you don't want to overbake or burn these. Into a large bowl, I add 1/3 cup of butter cut into pieces and 2 teaspoons of beef base or 2 bouillon cubes plus 3/4 cup of hot water. I also add 1/3 cup of non-fat dry milk and mix everything together until the butter is melted. Then I add 1½ cups of whole wheat flour and mix it well, and then add another 1½ cups and mix with my hands until everything is completely combined. As before, I lightly flour my work surface and roll out my dough, but I've added another mark on my skewer because this time I want my dough between 1/4 and 1/2 inch thick. I cut and place my Milk-Bones on a parchment-lined baking sheet and re-roll my scraps, dipping the cutter in flour if it starts to stick. Then I prick each biscuit with a fork before heading to bake these in the oven at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. After they've baked for 20 minutes, I turn off the heat and prop the door open to allow the bones to dry for 30 minutes. Then I move them to the counter to cool completely before storing them in an airtight container to keep them fresh. And there's no need to refrigerate these. You'll feel so much better making your own treats for your fur friends, like I do for Ginger and Pepper. It's so simple and one more example of how easy great cooking can be.